The air is freezing, thick with the smell of wet wool and sharpened iron. 1,000 men stand in the grey dawn, statues of fur and steel. There is no shouting, no bravado, only a terrifying, heavy silence. A veteran warrior, his face a roadmap of scars, squeezes his eyes shut. His calloused hands aren't gripping his axe, they are wrapped around a small, crude wooden cross hanging from his neck. Suddenly, the silence is shattered. It isn't a Viking war cry, it is a low murmur spreading through the ranks, some whispering Kyrie eleison, others clutching silent prayers. In these woods, the old gods Woden and Thor have fallen silent. In their place stands a mighty chieftain of the heavens who demands both faith and blood. For these warriors, the transition from pagan darkness to the Iron Age of the Cross is complete. The Christian rituals Germanic warriors performed before battle were not just prayers, they were the final, desperate preparations of men standing on the razor's edge of eternity. How the barbarian soul was baptized. The conversion of the Germanic tribes, the Franks, the Saxons, the Lombards, was a tectonic shift where the barbarian spirit was baptized rather than erased. The Germanic ideal of the comitatus, the undying loyalty between a lord and his men, was grafted onto the image of Christ. He was no longer just a peaceful shepherd. To the Germanic mind, Jesus was the Richter, the mighty chieftain of heaven. In the shadow of the cathedral, the rituals of the battlefield became a sophisticated blend of Roman liturgy and tribal ferocity. The rituals of the Holy War. Number 1. Purifying the soul, confession and Holy Communion. Before a drop of enemy blood is spilled, the warrior ensures his own soul is clear. In the face of certain death, pride vanishes. Men kneel in the dirt as a priest moves among them to confess murders, thefts and adulteries. A man who died in a state of mortal sin feared damnation, but a man shriveled by a priest believed he could face death with a cleansed soul and the hope of salvation. Following confession, many took the Eucharist. Receiving Holy Communion in the mud of a front line was the ultimate act of spiritual readiness, a purification of the soul before facing eternity. This ritual transformed the battlefield into a makeshift cathedral, where the bread and wine represented a final feast before the Feast of Crows. Number 2. Holy Incantations, the War Psalms. As the warriors gripped their weapons, they didn't recite sagas, they recited the Bible. The Psalms became the true battle hymns of the Germanic Christian. They whispered Psalm 144, "Blessed be the Lord my strength, which teacheth my hands to war, and my fingers to fight." They sought victory through Psalm 20, and protection in the valley of death through Psalm 20, and protection in the valley of death through Psalm 23. To the Germanic ear, these weren't just poems, they were words of strength reminding them that their fate rested in the hands of the Creator. Number 3. Sanctifying the blade, the blessing of the swords. Next comes the sanctification of the tools of slaughter. In some cases, clergy blessed weapons or banners, offering prayers for protection and justice in the coming battle. Clergy moved through the ranks, offering prayers for protection and victory. Bless, O Lord, this blade, that it may be a defense for widows and orphans against the cruelty of the pagan. According to later accounts, Clovis I, king of the Franks, called upon the Christian God during battle, promising conversion for victory. The victory came, and the link between faith and warfare was forged in iron. By sprinkling holy water on the steel, the priest was essentially baptizing the weapon, stripping away its secular nature and turning it into a holy relic of the state. The blend of Viking ferocity and Christian faith created one of the most powerful warrior cultures in history. Which of these rituals surprised you the most? Let us know in the comments your insights. Help us keep these deep dives into history alive. Number 4. Spiritual artillery, relics and holy symbols. An army did not just march with soldiers, it marched with the dead. The arm bone of a saint or a splinter of the true cross was carried at the vanguard in jewel-encrusted reliquaries. Warriors fought under Christian banners and carried crosses into the fray, not as mere ornaments, but as physical anchors of divine grace that could turn the tide when steel alone failed. These relics were often paraded before the shield wall, believed to offer divine protection and strengthen the morale of the warriors who marched behind them. To the Germanic mind, the proximity of a holy bone or a fragment of sacred wood created a sanctified zone on the field. They believed the martyrs were physically present, standing in the front rank, their spiritual power acting as an invisible rampart that could blunt the sharpest enemy blade. It was a fusion of ancient ancestor worship and New World theology. The saint was the new tribal patriarch, guarding his kin with celestial fire. Number 5. The Warrior's Watch, the sacred night vigil. On the eve of battle, warriors influenced by monastic traditions kept vigil in prayer. While the camp slept, these men stayed awake in sanctuaries, laying their armor before the altar as an offering to God. This was a psychological masterstroke. By sunrise, they had already accepted their deaths. They walked onto the field not fearing for their lives, but as vessels for a higher will. In flickering candlelight, the warrior meditated on the vanity of earthly life. By treating armor as a sacrificial offering, they stripped away the self-preservation that often breaks a shield wall. When dawn broke, they emerged with cold, terrifying detachment. They were no longer fighting to survive, they were fulfilling a destiny already surrendered to the Almighty. Number 6. The Holy Contract, oaths sworn on the Gospel. Betrayal was the ultimate Germanic sin. To ensure loyalty, leaders forced men to swear oaths. The ritual changed. They no longer swore on rings dipped in blood, but on gospels and sacred relics. By asking God to witness their loyalty, they ensured traitors faced not just the king's axe, but divine judgment. This transformation shifted the consequences of treason to the cosmic. Breaking such a vow meant forfeiting one's soul. These practices later influenced Christian chivalry. The idea that a warrior's word was a bond held before God, a sacred contract binding the knight's honor to the throne of heaven. Number 7. Calling the heavens, the litany of the saints. In the moments before the charge, the air would fill with the names of the warriors of heaven. Soldiers would call upon St. Michael, the archangel, the commander of God's armies, or St. George, the dragon slayer. They viewed the saints not as distant figures, but as elder brothers in arms who were watching from the ramparts of the celestial city. They believed that if they fought bravely, these saints watched over them and could intercede on their behalf. The litany was a rhythmic, rising roar. As each name was called Sancte Jacobe, Sancte Moriti, Sancte Sebastiane, the warriors felt their individual identities merge into a singular holy collective. They believed the veil between worlds was thin in the moments before slaughter, and that a celestial host was descending to join the fray. The saints were the patrons of the professional soldier, providing a divine blueprint for how to kill and die with honor. The battle hymn. As the enemy appears on the horizon, the silence is broken by a chant. The entire army begins to sway, rhythmically striking their shields. They sing the Kyrie eleison. Thousands of voices create a low, guttural roar that shakes the earth. The tension snaps. The fear of death is replaced by a terrifying religious certainty. They are no longer just fighting for land, they are the milites Christi, the soldiers of Christ. A warrior kisses his cross, lowers his visor, and charges. The legacy of the baptized blade. The rituals of the Germanic Christian warrior represent a pivotal moment in human history, the moment where the raw, primal energy of the North met the structured, spiritual depth of the East. It was a fusion that redefined the concept of the hero. No longer was a warrior merely a man who fought for glory or gold. He was now a protector of the faith, a defender of the weak, and a servant of the king whose kingdom was not of the weak, and a servant of a king whose kingdom was not of this world. These rituals did more than just soothe the nerves of frightened men. They created a moral framework for the absolute chaos of medieval warfare. By bringing the priest to the battlefield and the gospel to the shield wall, the early medieval world attempted to tame the beast of war with the hand of God. The line between the physical and the spiritual did not exist for these men. To them, the ritual was as essential as the sharpening of the sword. While the gods of the old forests had faded into folklore, the warriors' need for a higher purpose remained eternal. They went to their deaths with the names of saints on their lips, their faith and their steel forged into a single, unbreakable force. As we look back through the mists of time, we see that it wasn't just iron that built Europe, it was the belief that their struggle carried meaning beyond the battlefield.